Week 11 of the Occupy Fantasy season-long podcast. It's your boy Walid. I'm here with the one and only Court Jesters, a.k.a. Brian. What it do?
What's up, Lead? I'm here with PC Lead, a.k.a. Chief Lead, a.k.a. Wale. What's up, man?
Hey, okay. And we're here to talk Week 11 season-long stuff. So it's getting towards crunch time. Playoffs are up and coming. Some folks are actually starting playoffs Week 12. Others are like legit, can't afford to lose anymore. So very, very big waiver wire week.
You can feel the anxiety in the air. Like anytime you talk to anyone about their team, it's like, oh shit, I got even in the people in the top spots, it's like, I don't feel as good about my team. You get the people fighting. So yeah, a lot of anxiety and a lot of big decisions to be made that are going to decide championships here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and for those who have like waiver wire auction budgets, it might be time to unload the clip. Can't take it with you, so may as well use it.
I do that so often, by the way. Like in some of my bigger leagues, I'll end up at the end of the year with like $800 out of $1,000 left over. It's like, what the fuck? Wait, what was I waiting for? And
unload it, baby.
I know. Well, I did last week on Brian Hill in my one league, so that was super fun. Yeah.
So let's talk about the guys, the top free agent pickups to monitor this week. We start with the Indianapolis Colts backfield, which is now a muddy mess with Marlon Mack fracturing his hand. He should be out for a while. Jordan Wilkins, he's the number 2 RB, but he's still kind of hurt. So lo and behold, Jonathan Williams came in and had 100 yards last week. Did you think you'd hear that name this year?
I did not. That's a throwback name. He was, he was a king in preseason this year. We played him a lot, but as far as him coming in off the bench and running for 100 yards, did not expect that. The one thing, Lee, though, I think we got news just before this podcast started that Jordan Wilkins was removed from the injury report this week. He practiced in full today. So I think he's the guy to have over, Nyheim Hines or Jonathan Williams. I mean, they like Wilkins a lot. They were even giving him touches when he was healthy. So
yeah, no, I mean, he's definitely, more familiar with what they're doing. But I think there's a lot of hype around Jonathan Williams. And for those that didn't get this news, and let's say your waivers processed Wednesday, you may have seen Jonathan Williams being the guy who just, got picked up for $20-$30 on your waiver wire.
Yeah, exactly. Because there was uncertainty. People saw Jonathan Williams. Oh, he's the guy to be the next man up. But I think Wilkins is the long-term play here. Like, even if he's limited tomorrow night, Thursday night, down the line, because we don't know how long Mac's going to be out. It could be a couple weeks. It could be to the end of the year, or at least the end of the fantasy season. So I would be inclined to pick up Wilkins, even if you don't start him tomorrow, Thursday. This could be a running back you have for a couple weeks.
Totally. And moving on to the Steelers, James Conner re-injured his shoulder. It's been a tough year for him, but you know what that means.
Jalen Samuels time. What a disaster, by the way, when a running back gets hurt like in the first quarter. It's the most helpless feeling when he puts up 3 points and now you're just like, especially on a Thursday night, you're just like tilting about it until the weekend starts. So
it's the worst. And James Conner has put owners through that. Hopefully he can get kind of back to 100%. But in the meantime, Jalen Samuels, he's delivered in this sort of spot before. Chances are he's probably still on someone's roster, but maybe not.
Yeah, I saw him dropped in a lot of leagues when Connor was back healthy. And if you couldn't pick up, waivers after the Thursday game, if Samuels was locked, then he might still be available. And we expect him to at least have a role in the passing game. Benny Snell should be back. But in a matchup with the Bengals, you got to like Samuels here. And if you're in need of a running back, especially if you had Connor, Samuels is a good option.
You want to talk Detroit Lions backfield?
Not really, but we got to do it. So
it's just that time of year, man. I swear that random guys just step in, and literally a week ago, if anyone was rostering Bo Scarborough, you'd be like, "This is a joke, right?" But here he is. Last week, 15 carries or I should say 15 touches and a touchdown. And he looks like a hot commodity this week.
He wasn't even on an NFL roster a week ago. Like, they promoted him from the practice squad and just immediately inserted him into this bell cow role. Now, again, he played like 50% of the snaps, but that's like Kerryon Johnson territory when Kerryon was playing. So, if he's
I mean,
gonna,
it's insane. You look at a guy. Sorry, just you look at a guy that seventh round pick. Of course, he had a very impressive college career, but he got picked, I think, by the Cowboys. Didn't make the team. Went through like the Jaguars, Seahawks, and just kind of going through life as a free agent running back. At this point, he's probably like, I don't know if I'll ever,
right?
have a home in the NFL. And then next thing you know, he makes his career debut and scores.
Right. Yeah, NFL's wild, man. I feel like we're talking about week 17 right now with, Jonathan Williams and Jalen Samuels and Bo Scarborough, and then our next guy that we're going to talk about is a ultimate preseason hero. So, I mean,
yeah. I picked them up too. We'll get there in a second. But,
times are tough, man. Times are tough. Week 12.
So, what do you make out of this backfield? Are you going to stay away, or like, is it worth making a play on someone like Bo Scarborough?
15 touches are hard to come by, so I would make a play. I mean, they're clearly not very enamored with Ty Johnson and J.D. McKissick to give them a ton of touches. Even when Carry-On went down the following week, they gave like 4 different guys touches. So they gave Scarborough a shot. He looked good. You're going to get goal line touches, so non-PPR leagues, you got to like him. Upside is definitely capped, though, in any PPR or bonus type scoring.
Yeah. He's a pretty one-dimensional back, but playing against the Skins is always a good way to find the end zone. So,
right.
Now let's talk about our boy James Washington. The Steelers are down Juju and potentially Deontay Johnson this week. So, I mean, by default, right, you got to give him some serious looks.
Yeah, he's been drawing targets the last 3 or 4 weeks. Had the 90-yard, 1 touchdown game 2 weeks ago. And if those 2 guys are down, especially against the Bengals, Washington's going to be the clear number 1 receiver. We'll see. Juju's definitely more doubtful than Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson did practice on Wednesday, so we'll see. But either way, even if Deontay plays, like James Washington's in play, and if you need a receiver in a good matchup, he's your guy.
So let me ask you this then, right? My number 4/flex receiver is Curtis Samuel, and I'm looking at James Washington here, and am I getting too cute? It's half-point PPR. Do I let Samuel keep kind of doing his thing, or is this a week, regardless of what happens to Deontay Johnson, I plug in Washington, or does what happens with Deontay affect what I do?
It probably does affect it, I think, because, as 7-point favorites in this game, Steelers could very easily get out to a lead and not – they clearly don't want to pass the ball much with Mason Rudolph anyways.
Sure. Yeah.
So, if they get a lead, maybe Washington – maybe he leads the team in targets, but maybe that's only 5 targets. So I would probably stick with Samuel in what should be a higher scoring game, but I get your fear with Samuel.
I just, I didn't want anyone else to pick up James Washington. I saw him there, and I had an empty spot, and I'm like, I'm not going to have this be held against me. So,
that's like half the moves in fantasy. It's like, I don't want someone else to have this guy. So.
And I mean, hey, look, I think he's talented. He has upside down the line. If, let's say Juju ends up missing more time and towards the end of the season, you're looking at week 15, 16, it could have some value in those playoff weeks.
Totally agree. And there's 2 other guys I think we should probably mention really quickly. N'Keal Harry, the Pats' first-round pick. He played some snaps last week with Mohamed Sanu, banged up a little bit. Philip Dorsett left the game. They haven't practiced as of Wednesday. And then Tim Patrick, who was activated off injured reserve. You remember they traded away Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
And now he's the number 2 guy there behind Cortland Sutton. So either those guys catch your eye in bigger leagues?
Depends how big, right? I mean, the Patriots' passing game has been pretty lackluster. And, I mean, even in the situation where like N'Keal Harry gets the same, what did he get like last week? 32 snaps.
Yep.
Still doesn't mean anything. Tim Patrick, you're still looking at the Denver Broncos passing game, and this week's matchup isn't easy. So I don't know. Like, those aren't really attractive options. Like, you got to be really desperate. But hey, some people are.
Hey, believe me, some leagues like I'm already out of it now. My FFPC, my main event team, could certainly use one of these guys, but that lets you know how that season has gone for me.
I mean, would you rather have a guy like Alex Erickson? Or
No.
I know that was kind of
Yeah, I mean,
just given game script, right? Like
maybe so. I mean, especially if Auden Tate misses, like he's going to be their number 2 receiver then. So yeah, maybe so. And Erickson's had some pretty big games so far.
And one last thing before we move on, someone that I just saw sitting on the waiver wire, who in theory is a lot better than these guys we just discussed, but the production has been ill. Good old Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, he should be a better player, better production than what he's been giving, but I don't know, man. They like Crowder more, they like Ryan Griffin more, apparently. So I don't.
Yeah.
I still believe in Robbie Anderson. I would scoop him up if he's available and just hold on to him, see if he gets more involved. But it's kind of disappointing his season that he's had so far.
Totally disappointing. But when you look at if he's on the waiver wire, given kind of the schedule up and coming, I think he's worth picking up because he's a big play guy and he could have a couple weeks down the stretch where he makes a difference.
I agree. I totally agree. You definitely pick him up. You never know what can happen.
Schedule gets a lot easier for them.
That's true too.
Survivor pick. The Browns are 11-point favorites against the Dolphins, so common sense says that's where you go.
Yeah, I don't know how they're 11-point favorites over anyone, but yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of big spreads this week, so I think you just roll with Cleveland and then hope there's no upset.
Are you seeing some momentum for the Browns right now? Like, I mean, they've won what is it 2 in a row?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I definitely could see it. No, they lost 2 weeks ago, right? Then they lose in Denver, and then they came back and won in Pittsburgh. I think, right?
I'm going to check that right now because I thought the Browns are streaking.
We'll see.
Embarrassing. Let's see.
They did lose Myles Garrett and Ogunjobi's out of game, so that makes it kind of tough. But
they beat Buffalo. They beat Buffalo 19-16.
Yes, correct. Okay.
And then they beat the Steelers. So I mean, look at their schedule, man. They got, and we'll talk about this in a sec because Baker Mayfield is looking like an interesting streaming option. But they have the Dolphins, the Steelers, Bengals, and the Cardinals. Their next 4.
Yeah, and actually one of our Twitter questions for the show from Bobby Tuggs, big friend of the show. He asked, are you considering picking up Mayfield now and then starting them, just not even streaming, just playing him every week, weeks 13 through 16, and maybe even this week too, week 12 against Miami.
We literally talked about this, a month ago maybe, when it was like bottom of the bottom for Baker, like after he probably had a 3 interception game against Seattle, and we looked ahead and the schedule was looking friendly. He's taken a step back. I don't think he's a bad quarterback at all. The O-line sucks. the play calling isn't great. But I mean, take this week. They have I think a 28-point implied total. You definitely want to start him against the Dolphins. And I have no doubt. Like right now, I just dropped Phillip Rivers for him. My 2 quarterbacks are Baker Mayfield and Jameis Winston. I'm starting Mayfield this week. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if I start Baker, more weeks than not. Now, if he delivers a dud here and throws 3 interceptions,
different story.
Quick. Yeah. But right now, I'm gonna trust it, and I mean, this is as good of a schedule as one could ask for in fantasy football.
You're 100% right. I mean, you got to love the schedule, and they're going to have high implied totals over the next few weeks from a Vegas and betting market standpoint. So I think you got to roll with it. Now, let's say someone got ahead of you and already scooped up Baker. Any other streaming quarterbacks you're looking at this week?
So Jeff Driscoll has been interesting. I think mainly because he can run, or can he run? I haven't even seen him. I think I saw him take off one play on red zone, but the dude has tallied 88 rush yards in the last 2 weeks. Is that a fluke?
No, the dude can run. Like Cincinnati legit tried to convert him to receiver before they cut him. So he can run. I mean, he ran a lot in college. Preseason he ran a lot, and they ran a read option around the goal line last week, which is how he scored his touchdown. So, we talk about guys who can add fantasy value with their legs. Driscoll's one of those guys, and he has 2 talented guys to throw the ball to too. So,
and he kind of looks like Nate Peterman. You ever seen a picture of this guy?
I mean, that can't be a bad thing, right? Or can it?
I don't know. I know I have a tendency of like calling out doppelgangers when maybe they're not there, but I think these two dudes do look alike. But no, I mean, yeah, like you can't really replace that sort of rushing production. And I mean, Stafford broke his back. I don't know what to expect. It's like he could be back. Thanksgiving he could be done for the whole season. What's your outlook on that?
Yeah, it sounded like a 6-week injury. We're 2 weeks into it now, but he thinks he can beat the timeline. The last I heard was probably not Thanksgiving, but then they have a 10-day rest afterwards, so probably that week 14 game. So Driscoll this week, probably Driscoll on Thanksgiving. I mean, what better way to start a Thanksgiving slate than the noon Jeff Driscoll game?
Oof. Versus potentially, I mean, Mitch won't be there, right? Do you think? What's his status?
If we're lucky, man, we got a Chase Daniel game on Thanksgiving last year. We could very easily get Chase versus Driscoll here.
Wow. Oh, my God. That's amazing. I did not wait. Said no one ever. But tight ends are a headache for a lot of people, as a lot of them were out on buys this week. And, I mean, any streaming options, they look to be a good amount this week.
Yeah, I guess a good amount, but it's kind of a quantity versus quality situation. You have Kelsey on bye, Henry's on bye, Kittle's still iffy, Hooper's out. So yeah, that's 4 legit tight ends that may not be in play. Guys I looked at, Jacob Hollister, if he's still available. Noah Fant has actually been dominating targets. He's my boy since week 10, of course. Jack Doyle, depending on if Ebron is available tomorrow night. Vance McDonald, 7 targets in 3 straight games, especially if the Steelers' wide receiver core is banged up. Ryan Griffin ran all over the Redskins. There's also a stash, Walid, that I think has become available in most leagues.
Tell me about it.
David Njoku.
I'm looking at him. I'm literally looking at him right now, and I'm pissed off because I have an open IR spot, and I can't just add him directly to it.
That's the worst. That's actually the worst, though.
Why can't? So should I just cut Jameis and then put him there, and then no one's going to pick up Jameis?
Right, I don't think so, right? I don't think so.
I don't know, man. Shit, man. But no, you're right. Week 15 matchup against Arizona. If you have an IR spot, why not?
Yeah, so he returns to practice today. They designated him as their return from IR candidate, which means they have 3 weeks to put him on the active roster. So he can practice for 3 weeks. He may not play this week. Freddie Kitchen wasn't too optimistic about him playing this week, but
he feels, and Njoku says he feels healthy enough to play, so that's a good indicator.
Right, and it was a wrist injury, so he's been conditioning this whole time. It's not like it was a leg injury and it's tough to get back. So even if he doesn't play this week, I imagine him to play in week 13. And again, we play fantasy football for the Arizona tight end matchup, and he gets that in potentially your league championship or semifinal game. Go ahead and scoop him up if you need a tight end.
All right, so help me out here, man. Like, what do I do? Like, do I just drop Jameis?
You were just talking all that shit about Baker being a must. So now, I mean, worst case, you can scoop another quarterback, but I don't think someone's going to pick up Jameis here in the next 24 hours, right?
Well, hope not. And then he goes off for 35 points against me in the playoffs. But we'll see. Let's talk streaming defenses here. Everyone knows Cleveland, Miami. I'm sure folks have been targeting that matchup maybe last week. The Redskins are in that spot where they play a bad team, and both defenses are in play. Both Detroit and Washington. Any other ones?
I think we have to look at Atlanta versus your boy Jameis. Ever since Dan Quinn gave up play calling duties during the bye week, Atlanta's been absolutely dominant, just getting insane pressure on the quarterback, forcing turnovers. And what better way than a banged up Jameis, who's prone to turnovers anyways? I think Atlanta has got to be considered a top 10 defense moving forward, considering the changes they've made.
They've been impressive, man. It's fun to see, even just the energy on the sideline, seeing Dan Quinn fired up with the defense.
Yep.
You think he could be coaching himself back into a job?
It's wild, right? Because he was calling plays, and then he decided not to call plays, and the team has gotten better, and somehow that solidifies his coaching slot. Makes no sense. But I think, the way the NFL works, that might actually be the case.
Let's jump into our Twitter questions. And Chris, our boy, the one and only Chris Rooney, wants to know, how does Matt Patricia screw us over this week?
I don't know if they have any other running backs on their roster, but they'll probably sign one and give him 12 carries.
Yeah.
So that's my...
I have a feeling, we might see Clinton Portis show up for the Lions this week.
It wouldn't surprise me either. All right, Drake, who OVO Jake is ask questions every week. All right, flex 1 point PPR. Who you starting this week? Tevin Coleman or Jarvis Landry?
Whew. Yeah, I mean, Tevin Coleman kind of let us down last week, but that's a tough one, man. Can I defer that?
Yeah, I'll answer Landry, by the way, against the
Yeah.
Dolphins. I'll answer it.
The revenge narrative. I mean, you're looking at a guy that,
True.
right, and he also the targets he gets are. I mean, I think he's averaged 10 targets a week for the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, he's the safer play in PPR.
I think so too. What do we do with David Johnson? 8-team league from our boy Nick.
Come on.
Hold or drop?
8-team is a little different.
Have you seen you've seen the video, right, of that run?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, he's washed.
Damn.
And whether it's physically washed or mentally washed or both, but clearly there's no confidence in his decision making or body. I don't know.
I mean, but it's just like, oh my God, I don't know if you can cut him. I just don't know if you can cut him.
Right.
I got to see one more week of him literally being just, you know what I mean, irrelevant, 0 touches. Then I think you can jump to that. But what if he does get 10 touches this week?
Yeah, that's the thing. They're on bye this week, right?
Or I should say next week.
Yeah, so you have to hold him for another 2 weeks. It gets kind of tricky here down the line. So
I don't know. I don't drop him. Don't drop him yet. They're paying him a lot of money. Yes, he does look slow in that video. Literally, if you type David Johnson, the second to David Johnson fantasy, then it's David Johnson slow, and that's fucked up. I'm a big fan of DJ. I don't know if he's just hurt or kind of what's going on, but we know the O-line's beat. I don't know. I'm not ready to give up on him. I'm lucky enough to have Kenyon Drake, so for me, it's just like a handcuff.
True. Right.
Right, but
DJ being the handcuff.
Literally, that's where we're at this point of the year. DJ is my handcuff for Kenyon Drake, so I have no idea, man. I just can't cut him.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, what's the next question? Let's give some more positive vibes here.
Yeah. Let's see. We got Carson Wentz or Josh Allen standard league.
I know we got Wentz against the Eagles, and I think that should be a shootout. Actually, we'll talk about that in our DFS episode. I would go Wentz.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, look, Josh Allen, he had a blow up spot against the Dolphins. He's had 2 blow up spots against the Dolphins.
Yep.
But other than that, despite his rushing floor, he hasn't shown me much as a passer. And this week's matchup against the Broncos, it just looks like it could be a low scoring slugfest. I think for perspective, that game has a lower implied total than the Steelers and Bengals game and the Lions and Redskins game.
There you go. That should be your answer. All right. Mark asked us, who do you start this week, Josh Gordon or Kareem Hunt? Non-PPR, by the way.
Sheesh, you got to start Kareem Hunt. I mean, right?
Yep, I agree.
Even non-PPR, he's an integral part of this offense in the receiving game, getting yards, and you would think that if they're up against the Dolphins, he might get more carries.
That's true. That's definitely true. Yeah, I think Hunt is the clear answer. Walid, we also got 2 offline questions, so I'm going to ask them to you. One is from Tyler.
Mail it to us? How did we get these offline questions?
Yeah, one was mailed, one was faxed. So
Okay,
the mailed question is from our MLB writer Tyler. Asks, he's in a tough spot. Who's he start this week? Pick one of 3: Nyheim Hines, Benny Snell, or Royce Freeman.
PPR, man, that's tough. I mean, Nyheim Hines seems like the safer bet.
Yeah.
Royce, I mean, maybe Royce Freeman. I don't trust Benny Snell. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Hines probably, especially PPR. All right, final question: Brian Hill versus Tampa or Joe Mixon versus Pittsburgh?
You got to keep riding the Mixon train. He's put together some effective performances, and Tampa Bay is one of those funnel defenses. They're actually really, really good against the run and horrible against the pass.
Think so. Mixon, 3 straight top 10 games. Despite Cincinnati's getting blown out, they just keep giving him 30 touches a game. So I agree. Got to go Mixon.
That's about it. So good luck on your waiver claims. Don't stress it if you don't get your guys, because chances are you probably save yourself some stress. These guys are all duds, and next week we'll be talking about a new set of guys you got to pick up.
Very true. Good point, Walid. So, all right, for Walid, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app to get our latest episodes. Also, be sure to listen to our DFS episode, Week 12 edition, either in your podcast apps or on YouTube. So, for Walid, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening.